notice that I have a slightly new setup, and I have a microphone, and I'm still kind of figuring out the setup, but I wanted to do something simple. So I have a little book here, and it's basically all about oceans and all the creatures that live in it. And so originally I wanted to film a sugar scrub video, but there was a little bit too much background noise, so I decided that maybe a book reading would be better. So this book is called 101 Questions About the Seashore, and it's by Cy Barlow. I've had this book for a long time, but I've never really had a chance to read it from front to back, so I figured this might be maybe a short series, and hopefully you find this relaxing, and maybe even learn a thing or two about the ocean. So, flip to the table of contents. Introduction, general, the upper seashore, the middle seashore, and the lower seashore. So, in today's video, we're going to do a little bit of the introduction and maybe a little bit of the general questions. So, here we go. Oh, whoopsies. Sorry about that. Introduction. Why do we study the life of the shore and shallow sea? Almost 3/4 of the earth is covered by water, in which life had its origin. We all carry that heritage in the salt content of our blood. Along the edges of the oceans and seas lie narrow bands of land, seashores, which are home to an astounding variety of life forms. Entire species of animals and plants are largely governed by the ebb and flow of the sea. Barnacles, starfish, sea anemones, and seaweed, whose unique life cycles depend on their exposure to the air for at least an hour or two every day. Others thrive beyond the immediate influences of the tides, amidst the eelgrass and seaside plants. The survival and well-being of the inhabitants of the seashores depend on the vagaries of daily and seasonal changes in temperature, light, and humidity. The kinds of animals that are found at the shore vary with the kinds of coastline and climate. The life of the rocky coast of Maine differs from that of the sandy shores of Long Island, and that of tropical regions differ from both. The shoreline is a dynamic entity, constantly changed by the action of the wind and waves. Storm waves erode. Storm waves erode beach cliffs, carrying away tons of sand to be deposited elsewhere and create new landforms in the endless battle between sea and shore. An awareness of this interplay of forces is essential to preserving the environmental integrity of these vital areas. What kinds of shore habitats are there? The most familiar area is the sandy beach, the least productive habitat for animals and plants because of the crashing surf and shifting sands. Here, the only life is hidden beneath the surface in burrows. Rocky shores present a more interesting habitat, providing anchors for seaweed, barnacles, anemones, and snails, and hiding places for crabs, starfish, and sea urchins. When the tide recedes, it leaves tide pools, variously sized puddles of seawater among the rocks. These pools are filled with a great variety of living creatures. Mudflats and estuaries are yet another environment teeming with life forms. How does the sea affect our climate? As the primary source of the atmospheric moisture that becomes rainfall, the oceans provide the fresh water necessary for life on Earth. The sun warms the sea, causing evaporation. As the vapor condenses, it creates clouds and eventually rain. The rain finds its way to rivers, where it completes the cycle by returning to the sea. Inland temperature variations are caused in part by winds that have been warmed or cooled by ocean currents. Chapter 2. General. Why is the sea salty? Billions of years ago, the ocean waters were almost salt-free. As the seawater evaporated, formed clouds, turned into rain, and poured onto the land, creating lakes and rivers. The consequent runoff contained dissolved salts, the accumulation of which gave us our saltwater seas and oceans. Today, a cubic mile of seawater is estimated to be 3.5% salt and contains some 166 million tons of salt. What are the most important minerals in seawater? Since supplies of minerals on land are declining, it is inevitable that we will have to turn to the sea for those valuable resources. In order of the quantities that can be extracted from 1 cubic mile of seawater, they are sodium chloride, magnesium chloride, magnesium sulfate, magnesium chloride, magnesium sulfate, calcium sulfate, potassium sulfate, and calcium carbonate. What do marine animals eat? They feed on plankton, seaweed, and one another, using a variety of methods, extending sticky tentacles, ingesting microscopic organisms, browsing on algae, and capturing prey by stealth. So here is a little drawing of the various sea creatures. Sorry about that. What are mollusks? Mollusks are a group of about 100,000 species of mostly marine animals, including clams, snails, squid, and octopuses. Marine mollusks are to be found at all depths of the ocean, and even floating on the surface. They live on and in the sand, among and under rocks. The shells of the various kinds of mollusks are so distinctively beautiful that they appear in many museums and private collections. They are also used as jewelry, ornaments, and buttons. What is a radula? Many mollusks are equipped with a rasping organ called a radula, a ribbon-like structure covered on one side with many rows of very small teeth that allow the animal to scrape algae or drill through the shell of some unfortunate oyster or clam. The teeth of the radula point backward to draw the food back into the mollusk's throat. What are bivalves? These are a group of mollusks also named pelecypods, Greek for hatchet-footed. Bivalves are the only mollusks with two hinged shells, or valves, that can be opened or closed by powerful sets of muscles. Are corals confined to tropical seas? No, although they are found mainly in the warm waters of the tropics. A few occur in temperate regions, and some even thrive in the Arctic. I'm going to pause there and show you the illustrations. So here we have what a mollusk is. As you can see, that's the little radula that they were talking about that helps scrape in algae to eat. And then we have the bivalves in clams, mussels, and oysters. Along with a photo or an illustration of some corals as well. Thousands of coral islands, called atolls, are the result of the growth of these colonies through the ages. Closely related to sea anemones, coral polyps build a hard cup of calcium carbonate in uncounted billions and take on the colors of minute algae plant cells present for their mutual benefit. What are gastropods? A subdivision of the phylum Mollusca. Typically, they consist of a spiral shell, a muscular foot, a head with eyes, tentacles, and an operculum. Gastropods make up the largest group of mollusks and include landforms as well. Some typical examples are whelks, abalones, cone shells, and periwinkles. What is an operculum? Found in most snail species, it is a horn plate attached to the rear upper surface of the foot. When the foot is withdrawn into the shell, this door snugly fits the opening and seals shut, protecting the snail from its enemies. The operculum also prevents some snails from drying out when the tide recedes. One of the tropical snails produces an operculum that is known as the cat's eye, that is used in jewelry. Why is the sea blue? The blue color of the sea results from the absorption and reflection of light by water molecules, debris, and dust, and the amount of plankton present. Light rays passing through the water are subject to scattering by these elements, with red, yellow, and green rays being diffused more than the blue. The fewer particles there are in the sea to reflect these rays, the more intense the blue will be. Moreover, the ocean reflects the sky. Coastal waters differ because there are more particles and plankton to absorb the light, and they reflect more colors. The concentration of phytoplankton in these waters produces chlorophyll, which imparts a greenish hue to the water. What are arthropods? The phylum Arthropoda, which means jointed foot in Greek, includes crustaceans, horseshoe crabs, sea spiders, and insects. This book focuses on the marine species such as crabs, lobsters, shrimps, and sand fleas. As arthropods develop, they cast off their rigid outer covering, revealing a soft new one that soon hardens into a larger replica of the older one. They are bilaterally symmetrical, meaning each side of the body mirrors the other. What is the exoskeleton? It's the rigid outside covering, or external skeleton, that protects and supports muscles, allowing movement of arthropods. This armor-like material periodically splits, allowing the growing animal to molt by shedding the older exoskeleton. During the molting, the new covering is soft, and the animal is vulnerable to attack by predators. The most familiar examples are the lobster and the blue crab. What are some examples of crustaceans? The phylum Crustacea, named for the animal's crust or outer covering, refers to some 30,000 joint-legged species living in the sea, in freshwater, and even on land. These include crabs, lobsters, shrimps, beach fleas, woodlice, barnacles, and water fleas. They can be sedentary, parasitic, or very active and have in common a segmented exoskeleton, jointed at various places to allow freedom of movement. Crustaceans range in size from microscopic to very large lobsters to the giant king crab of Japan. What are cilia? Cilia are minute internal or external hairs in many sea creatures. They vibrate, providing locomotion, and sweep currents containing food into the mouth. What are echinoderms? Echinoderms, from the Greek echinos, meaning hedgehog, and derma, skin, are animals whose external skeleton is made up of calcareous plates covered with projecting spines. They usually have a 5-part star-like pattern. There are 5 classes in this group: starfishes, sea urchins, and brittle stars, sea cucumbers, and crinoids, also known as sea lilies. What is symbiosis? Here's a nice illustration. There are relationships between animals of different species living together that scientists call symbiosis, living together in Greek. If the relationship is so vital that one cannot survive without the other, it is known as mutualism. When the intimate association benefits both, but is not necessary for either, it is called commensalism. The hermit crab, using an empty shell, is commensal with the sea anemone found on the shell. The crab provides food for the anemone by stirring up the bottom in its search for food, while the anemone affords some protection to the crab by virtue of its stinging tentacles. If one animal causes harm to the other, the relationship is called parasitism. Which shell, which is actually my favorite, which shell is commonly believed to reproduce the roar of the ocean when held to the air? The queen conch, or Strombus gigas, has fascinated children for generations with its supposed ability to bring the sound of the ocean to their ears. Actually, any large shell or bowl would do the same thing, since what is heard is a concentration of nearby sounds amplified to a muffled roar that sounds like crashing surf. Which shells were used as money? In earlier times, simpler societies used certain shells as money. Their value was determined by their beauty and availability. Native Americans of both our coasts used these shells as money or for trading purposes. So I'm going to leave off right here in the book 101 Questions About the Seashore. And I also have a little surprise that is very relevant to this informational book, and I will show you that in just a second. So I have something quite special, and you can probably hear it. So what I have is the queen conch, which is one of these shells that the book was talking about, known for its sound of the ocean inside. This is a genuine shell. It's not fake or acrylic. And I thought it would be interesting to show it to you guys, because it's one of my favorite little decorative items that I like to keep with me. And so you can see it's quite a large shell. and it has that little rounded opening the book was talking about. And when you put it up to your ear, it creates the sound of the ocean. I'm not quite sure if the mic will pick it up, but if it does, that'll be pretty cool. And if it doesn't, then you'll just have to try it on your own. So I'll put it up to the mic. And it shows that registered for me, so hopefully you guys will be able to hear that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this special little show and some facts about the ocean and the creatures that live there. I am a huge animal lover and nerd of all of these facts about animals and biology and marine biology as well. And I find it very fascinating and interesting. And it's partially what I'll be pursuing in the future. So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that you learned something new and that this was relaxing, and I hope to see you again. Good night, sweet dreams, and remember, as always, you are beautiful, and I will see you in my next video. Feel free to leave comments or suggestions. I'll try to reply as quick as I can. And thank you again for watching,